revealed how an inspiring poor boy helped a billionaire's daughter transform her life against death. Jake's heart raced as he twisted through the dodging bodies on the sidewalk, his mind a whirl of ambition and worry. The smell of street food mingling with exhaust fumes filled his nostrils, but he pushed through the crowd, his mother's words echoing in his ears. "You're destined for greatness, kid." Every day was a surge of gritty resolve in the city, but today felt different. He could sense the weight of impending choices. As he hurried to the local park, he caught glimpses of the life he dreamed about, the life he had to fight for. Clara's laughter rang like chimes on the wind as she strolled the manicured paths of her family's estate, but it echoed hollowly in her ears. She wandered among flowers, hidden by the sprawling mansion's walls, but those walls felt like a cage. Each day, her father demanded perfection, suffocating her in expectations that lost their meaning. She longed for authenticity, for connection, yet found only fleeting moments of fulfillment amidst luxury. Gazing out toward the city beyond, her heart swelled with envy. Jake's world was alive, a vibrant chaos she yearned to touch. Jake had only just learned to balance the weight of family sacrifice against his dreams. School was more than a place, it was a battleground, where he was the underdog in a system stacked against him. He craved knowledge as fiercely as he craved freedom. But how could he conquer academic giants when he felt as heavy as bricks reinforced with doubt? There, in the park, their worlds collided, an unexpected spark, igniting a friendship that seemed impossible. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jake felt the first warming embers of camaraderie as he unraveled stories of late-night studies and makeshift inventions. Clara's eyes sparkled with fascination, yet panic tightened his chest. Could he trust her? Was it naive to believe she might understand? On the other hand, Claire battled her own storm, feeling the crushing weight of heredity. Her friendships crumbled under the judgmental gaze of peers when they saw her speaking to someone like him. As their bond deepened, which felt as fragile as a soap bubble, both faced growing scrutiny, pulling at the frayed edges of their connection. Then came the day Claire discovered her father's shadows, the hidden truths of privilege that built the walls around Jake's world. She felt violated by the understanding that her family's comfort came at the cost of his reality. The revelation struck like a sledgehammer. Her instincts told her to challenge her father's positioning, his systemic oppression sitting heavy in her heart. Yet, she felt a deep-rooted fear choking any defiance. Would speaking out risk losing everything she held dear? And would Jake still look at her like he did when they first met? Or would she become just another emblem of the insensitivity? Jake, sensing the growing murmur of discontent from his friends, felt the tightening noose of expectation, but also a flicker of hope, a chance to rise above society's cruel labels. Life spiraled, and as Claire prepared to confront her father, tension hung like a mist, cloaking them both. Each heartbeat echoed, pounding louder than the world around them. As Claire stood before the heavy wooden door of her family's study, the gravity of her choice pressed down on her like an avalanche threatening to unleash, ready to consume everything she thought she knew. Would she find the courage to shatter the chains binding her to prejudice? Or would she turn back, abandoning Jake in the chaos? The future teetered on the edge, leaving the air electrified with anticipation and dread. The wooden door loomed before Claire, an imposing sentinel guarding a lifetime of expectations. She could feel the eerie stillness of the hallway around her, punctuated only by the distant buzz of the family's wealth, a luxurious but suffocating silence that wrapped around her like a fog. She pressed her palm flat against the lacquered surface, a momentary anchor as thoughts collided violently in her mind. Was she ready to face her father? Could she articulate the truth without being drowned by his anger? Jake had ignited an unfamiliar fire within her, a sense of purpose that had lain dormant beneath her carefully constructed facade. Their connection was not merely an escape. It was a mirror reflecting her own truths. She had begun to recognize the injustices that consumed both their lives, woven together by privilege and sacrifice. The disparity felt like a raging storm inside her, urging her to break the silence, to shatter the glass cage surrounding her. Meanwhile, Jake trudged through his day, the mounting pressure at school heavier than usual. Unexpected challenges had swirled around him in unanticipated ways. When he had savored the smallest triumph of top scores in his class, his peers had whispered snide remarks about him being an overachiever, as if his accomplishments bore an unnatural taint. Yet those moments when Claire shared her world with him rang like music through a crowd, making the weight of his situation fade, if only momentarily. With each passing hour, Jake wrestled between instinct and aspiration. It wasn't simply about proving that he belonged in this atmosphere of affluence. It was about proving to himself that he could stand shoulder to shoulder with Claire. He envisioned her smile, felt the spark of inspiration in her unwavering eyes as she believed in his dreams. That realization shaped his resolve, igniting something within. It made losing himself in meticulous studies as he crafted varsity projects worthwhile. Planted ambition deep in his soul, the heart of the school stood a massive prize, a scholarship that would unlock future horizons. An opportunity for students to chase dreams like predators through the tall grass. Yet as he carved out plans and strategies for group projects, he sensed the division growing deeper. Jake wanted to reach for those goals, to present his ideas, but felt an oppressive force pulling at the threads of his confidence. Each voice around him reminded him of his background. Claire menaced the threshold of her father's space, trembling with anticipation. The door swung open, revealing a polished office that encapsulated everything she despised about her legacy. The glint of gold awards and framed accolades taunted her, memories of hollow accomplishments that bore no reflection of her true self. This was not merely about her father's expectations. It was about her battling against the chains, pieces of his legacy that suffocated her. Would she expose the truth, challenge everything she had known, and risk the very foundation of her identity? As if sensing her emotional tide, Jake finally reached the decision to muster his courage. He texted Claire, sharing his thoughts about the upcoming scholarship competition, importance of unity, and the potential for breaking boundaries together. His heart raced, both anticipation and dread flowing through him, anxious about her reaction. Little did they realize, their personal battles woven neatly together by fate were moments from colliding. Meanwhile, Claire's breath hitched as her father glanced up from behind his desk, eyes narrowing with piercing scrutiny. "You wanted to talk?" The casual tone betrayed no sign of the tempest brewing within her. That singular moment hung suspended in time, teetering annoyingly between silence and chaos. Would she take that leap, or would she return to the safety of her gilded prison? In an instant, everything was on the line. Secrets simmered just beneath the surface, and both stood at precipices of their own making. And as the world turned, each faced a moment of reckoning that would define not just their futures, but the very fabric of their evolving identities. The air grew thick with tension, sealing both paths with irrevocable choices. As Claire began to speak, the boundaries of their lives were about to shift forever. Claire's voice wavered, teetering dangerously on the brink of revelation. All the words she had practiced in her mind surged forward, colliding against her father's imposing presence. "Dad, I can't keep pretending." The admission hung in the air, heavy with the weight of her discontent. Her father's expression shifted, the glimmer of anger flashing even before it was fully formed. He leaned forward, a predator sensing the vulnerability in his prey. "Pretending? What are you getting at, Claire? I've built everything we have. This life, it's all for you." The accusation in his tone unraveled a thread of her resolve. Instead of feeling crushed, however, a flicker of determination sparked within her. "For me? Or for yourself? I want to be free of your expectations, to find my own path." Her words were more than a plea. They were an affirmation of her identity. This was not merely about the weight of her father's expectations, but about carving out a life anchored on her choices rather than on gilded chains. The realization, so foreign mere moments ago, felt liberating. It was as if she had donned armor that shielded her from his fury, Meanwhile, Jake sat hunched at his desk, caught between the crumpled blueprints of his project and the echoes of his own doubts. The spark of ambition Claire had ignited began to dim under the pressure of uncertainty. He loved the way she pushed him to dream, yet the shadows of his insecurities wrapped around him fiercely. He hesitated, fingers hovering over his phone, over Claire's last text about confronting her father. What if she needed him now more than ever? Suddenly, he was gripped by an instinct. This was not a battle she could win alone. He needed to be the support she found in him, just as she had been for him. Jake swung back into action, formulating a plan to encourage her, to remind her of the courage she had inspired in him. He reached for his phone and began typing, pouring his thoughts into a heartfelt message. Claire, you're stronger than you think. This moment is yours to own. Don't let him dictate your worth. Whatever happens, I've got your back. Always. His heart raced as he hit send, his commitment solidifying with each tap of his fingers. The words echoed the connection they had formed, a partnership rooted in mutual encouragement, soaring above the judgments cast by their worlds as Claire spoke. Her father's eyebrows knit tighter, his lips compressed into a frown that spoke volumes of his disappointment. Yet with each word that fell from her lips, each truth unveiled, an electric current surged through her veins, exhilaration coursing alongside fear. The showdown felt monumental. She could very well lose everything, but staying silent would guarantee her a lifetime of regret. After a long silence, he finally cut her off. You think you can just walk away from this? You have responsibilities, Claire. Your image matters. Our family matters. But instead of crumbling at his words, she took a deep breath, the armor of determination freshly forged around her. Being a part of this family shouldn't mean I have to lose myself. I choose to break free. The defiance in her voice, the clarity combined with an unyielding spirit, startled her father momentarily into silence. Within that suspended moment of chaos and revelation, something deep shifted. Claire realized even if her father rejected her, even if she lost the life she knew, she was still standing firm for her own authenticity. As her father retreated into frustration, contemplating his next move, Jake's phone buzzed. It was a notification that drew his attention, a gathering for young achievers, a space to showcase their projects. His resolve sharpened. He had to take this chance, not only for himself but to support Claire in carving her own niche. Behind that polished office door, a battle waged silently between ambition and legacy, and as both Claire and Jake faced their respective crossroads, the question loomed painfully. Would they emerge transformed, or would they succumb to the familiar restraints of their histories? With decisions hanging in the balance, the next steps loomed large. The momentum had shifted, and the desire for courage burned brightly within them. But would they dare take the leap into the unknown, or would they falter, lost between dreams and harsh reality? Claire stepped back from her father, a mix of adrenaline and fear coursing through her bloodstream. Every fiber of her being was resonating with a newfound power. Freedom felt tangible, just within reach. But in the face of her father's simmering anger, grasping it would be a battle. What you call responsibilities, I see as shackles, she said, infusing each word with conviction. A voice honed by years of suppressing her true self. His eyes widened, surprise mixed with a venomous desire to control the narrative. You think this is easy for me? This isn't just about your happiness, Claire. Our name, our legacy, it matters, he replied, his words dripping with condescension. For once, Claire refused to shrink under the weight of his belittling tone. My happiness matters too, Dad, and I refuse to sacrifice it on the altar of tradition. I deserve the chance to build my own legacy. As the confrontation spiraled into heights of emotion, a cascade of adrenaline fueled her clarity. Meanwhile, miles away at his cluttered desk, Jake's mind raced. The handwritten notes of his project lay scattered around him, their potential gathering dust rather than accolades. Inspired by Claire's courage, he felt the stirrings of ambition ignite. He couldn't just cheer her on from the sidelines. He needed to take action. This competition for young achievers could be his moment to reassert his vision as well. Rising from his chair, Jake's pulse quickened. He began to outline his project with fervor, determined to express not just his capabilities, but the idea that had flickered to life in their conversations, designing sustainable architecture that bridged economic gaps. It wasn't merely a professional endeavor. It was personal, a testament to his resilience forged alongside Claire. Back in the living room, Claire noticed her father's rising irritation manifest through clenched fists, his face flushed. The stakes had escalated quickly, and she knew this was not merely about her choosing her path. It was about dismantling his worldview. I don't want to live a life according to others' definitions of success. You need to understand that. In this moment of revelation, she felt a surge of self-affirmation wash over her. No longer would she conform to expectations crafted by her father's design. Each pulse of defiance tightened her grip on her own narrative. Watching him, she sifted through the weight of her past decisions, all the times she had sidelined her own dreams. Living for your expectations has led me to a crossroads, and I refuse to remain shackled by them any longer. An unsettling silence settled between them, her declaration ricocheting off the walls of their home, her father's fortress. As he struggled to find words, Claire glimpsed the self-doubt flickering in his eyes. The chaos of her own childhood, filled with uncertainty and fear of disappointing him, was being rewritten in a single moment of strength. Jake, his mind racing with possibilities, decided right here and now that he would submit his project to the competition. This would be a bold step into uncharted territory, one that could define his future. His heart swelled with the sense of impending change, even vulnerability. He started to type the details into his phone. Submitting now, this is it. For both of us. He muttered under his breath, the weight of his decision feeling monumental. Just as he hit send, the phone buzzed in happiness, a direct message from Claire lighting up the screen. I faced him. I need to talk. Can we meet? The urgency of her words washed over Jake like an electric current, and he realized that their battles were intertwined. His support for her was as vital as her fight for autonomy. He knew they couldn't navigate this alone, but together they could redefine their realities. Back with her father, Claire felt the air shift. He was preparing to unleash a counterattack, the discomfort mirrored in his clenched jaw. Let me remind you, he began slowly, this isn't just about your dreams. There are consequences. But as his words hung, Claire took a deep breath, equipping herself with the notion that she wouldn't back down. Then let us talk about those consequences. But this time, the conversation shifts to my dreams. The cliff upon which they stood felt dizzyingly high, but which of them would ultimately topple over? The next moment was uncertain, yet charged with potential as they stared each other down. Hearts racing, waiting for the other to act. Clara's heart thudded in her chest, the tension between her and her father thick enough to slice. She could feel the air vibrating with their unspoken thoughts, a silent war waged within the confines of their home. Her pulse raced, not with fear, but with the defiance she had just cultivated. That defining moment was hers to seize, a chance to ensure her existence extended far beyond her father's decrees. Consequences? She echoed, her voice steady despite the tempest raging within. What about the consequences of a life spent in compliance? I've watched you force your will upon everyone, and I've become tired of being a pawn in your game. Life is not a zero-sum match, Dad. His brows furrowed, confusion mingling with indignation. You think you can just dismiss everything we've worked for? It's not that simple. But Claire had never been one to shy away from complexity. It was in the messiness of relationships that truths were forged. Maybe that's true, but I refuse to let your fears dictate my life. I need to make my own choices, even if that means venturing into the unknown. For years, she had navigated his expectations, suppressing her dreams in favor of conforming. But in the face of his anger, that burden felt lighter. Fighting for her autonomy was not something she would approach tentatively. It would be a declaration of her intentions. I want to build something that reflects who I truly am, not just a legacy written in stone for others to admire. I'm not asking for permission anymore, she asserted, emboldened by the knowledge that she could create her narrative. One not dictated by her lineage but by her aspirations, The shift in his demeanor was palpable. She could see him grappling with the reality of her battle stance. It was astonishing to face him, to realize that the man who had always loomed larger than life felt threatened, not by her ambitions but by the possibility of losing power over her choices. There's bravery in pursuing your dreams, Claire, but don't underestimate the sacrifices required, he warned, an edge of desperation woven into his tone. Sacrifice or compromise? Claire countered, recycling memories of all the times she had muted her voice, swallowed her thoughts. Each instance was a thread woven into a fabric she now rejected. From her father's tightened jaw and flared nostrils, she gathered an understanding that the confrontation was not merely personal, but a collision of generations, a battle of two ideologies that had defined their family's legacy. For him, legacy was a collection of accolades. For her, it was an expression of personal fulfillment. Feeling invigorated by their standoff, the flicker of something familiar ignited deep within her, reminiscent of moments spent sketching ideas outside on the stone bench. There had been courage hidden in those daydreams. They had been glimpses of who she could become, a creator and not simply a participant in someone else's story. Everything you fear for me is but a reflection of your own fears, she offered, softening slightly, confused by a sudden swell of empathy. She was not only breaking away. She was shining a light on the futility of clinging to control his and her own. He sank into an uneasy silence, uncertainty creasing his brow. Just then, her phone buzzed in her pocket. An incoming message from Jake. "Can we talk? I just made a huge decision." The distraction pulled Claire from that tense space, igniting a new spark of hope. What had Jake decided? The thought of their intertwined dreams sent a thrill through her. She glanced back at her father, now wrestling with his discontent. Would he choose to silence her? "Don't underestimate me, Dad, and don't hold me back." Claire turned away, the weight of her choice lingering in the air. There was so much yet to unfold, and the ground beneath her felt both shaky and unwavering. As she stepped out of the house, the world outside waited, crisp and unyielding. She was fueled by the kind of resolve that only came from within, a sense of purpose that allowed her to claim her personal and professional fate. Was she ready to confront what lay ahead? Would their next moves define the balance they both sought? The message blinked defiantly on her screen, pulling her back into her unfolding narrative. It was time to meet Jake and discover what awaited them both in the unknown. What might their collaboration bring? The answers awaited them, shrouded in the promise of change. Claire navigated the bustling streets, each purposeful step reflecting the newfound determination that pulsed through her veins. Her heart raced not just from the confrontation with her father, but from the exhilarating prospect of what Jake might reveal. The city hummed around her, a vibrant backdrop to her awakening, reminding her that life could be more than what others prescribed. As she arrived at their usual meeting spot, a small cafe tucked between towering glass buildings, she took a deep breath. The scent of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, wrapping around her like a warm embrace. Her mind swirled with possibilities. She could see herself launching into a project that resonated with her values, that spoke of identity and purpose. When she spotted Jake at their table, she felt a jolt of anticipation. He was hunched over his phone, a focused look on his face. The slight furrow of his brow mirrored the tension she had just escaped at home. As she approached, his eyes lifted, and the moment their gazes met, Claire felt a rush of reassurance. They were in this together. "Hey, sorry, I wanted to get everything organized before our chat," he said, his enthusiasm palpable as he set the phone aside. "Organized?" Claire raised an eyebrow, her curiosity piqued. "That sounds serious." "It is. I've been thinking about our idea, the startup and all." His voice crackled with excitement. "I've had some conversations that could really help get things moving." Claire's chest tightened. She had spent countless hours brainstorming with him, shaping their dream into a reality. But now, sitting across from him, she questioned whether she was ready to embrace this leap. "What did you find out?" Jake hesitated, studying her. "I reached out to some investors I know, and they're interested. If we can pitch them right, we might secure funding sooner than we thought." The weight of his words settled heavy on her shoulders. Jake's enthusiasm was contagious, but the implications for her own journey were daunting. That's great, but are you sure we're ready? It's a big step. Claire, he leaned forward, his expression earnest. Every dream seems daunting at first. We can't let fear hold us back. We have the vision, and that's what matters. You've got the passion and creativity, it's time to let it shine. Something in his words ignited a flicker of confidence within her. She had always been guarded, hesitant to reveal the full extent of her capabilities. Yet, here was Jake, a kindred spirit urging her to confront that wall she had built around herself. What if we fail? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. It was the fear that lingered in the shadows of her ambitions, the flicker of doubt she had fought to extinguish. Failure is part of the process, Jake countered. It doesn't define us. We'll learn, adapt, and keep moving forward. You taught me that. With his encouragement pushing her forward, Claire felt her heart race anew, not with trepidation, but with the invigorating pull of possibility. What if they turned their idea into something impactful? So, are we ready to create a pitch? Claire asked, her resolve cementing itself in her voice. Absolutely. Let us outline everything, he replied, his enthusiasm electric as they mapped out their ideas. Her anxiety began to dissipate, replaced by a rapture for the future they could build. Moments passed like whispers filled with purpose. Her mind thrummed with a newfound clarity. Every thought tethered to her aspirations unfurled, ready to take shape in the world. After nearly an hour of relentless brainstorming, a sense of accomplishment washed over them. They were not merely drafting a business plan. They were sculpting a vision for their futures. But just as clarity settled, a wave of uncertainty crashed in as Claire's phone buzzed again, a message from her father, a reminder of the lingering conflict. We need to talk, Claire. I hope you will reconsider. The push and pull of her ambition coupled with her father's looming presence brought her face to face with a dilemma that gnawed at her. Could she uphold her commitment to her dreams while navigating the expectations tethered to her family? With determination, Claire rolled her shoulders back, ready to face the converging forces in her life. One path led to her father's expectations, the other to her collaboration with Jake. Which would define her? The choice lay heavy in the air. She had to decide before the moments slipped away. Would she continue bending to legacy, or would she step boldly into the unknown? With each heartbeat, the tension coiled tighter. The next move was hers to make. Claire stared at her phone, the message from her father lingering like an unwelcome specter as her heart raced with conflicting emotions. Her mind flitted between the promises of collaboration with Jake and the weight of familial expectations that threatened to pull her back toward an identity she was beginning to outgrow. Everything okay? Jake's voice broke through her reverie, concern etched on his face. She wanted to brush off her father's message, but the tension gnawed at her. It's just, my dad. He wants to talk. He doesn't understand why I'm discontent. Maybe he just cares, Jake said, leaning back in his chair, his expression shifting to one of empathy. But your happiness has to come first, right? The statement hung in the air, a powerful acknowledgement of her struggle. Could she define her happiness against the backdrop of familial loyalty? Right, she finally admitted, her voice steadying. But does that mean cutting ties with everything I've known? Jake shook his head. Not cutting ties, but bending them a little. You owe it to yourself to explore your dreams, Claire. This startup, it's not just a business idea to you. It's a piece of your identity. As he spoke, a flicker of realization ignited within her. Jake was right. The startup represented her rebirth, a chance to step away from the shadow of expectations that loomed over her life. She took a deep breath, allowing his words to sink in. What if we turn the pitch into something personal? Something that resonates with both of our stories? Now you're talking. Jake's enthusiasm mirrored her burgeoning excitement. Let us weave your experiences into the pitch. Show them not just the business potential but the passion behind it. Ideas cascading, Claire began to see how their own narratives could entwine into a compelling story, how her privilege and Jake's resilience could present a picture of contrast that spoke volumes about their motivation. It fueled her passion, igniting a fire that had been marred by uncertainty for far too long. In the whirl of brainstorming, she felt herself shedding layers of apprehension. Jake was an equal partner in this venture, and it wasn't just about funding. It was about validating their journeys. Claire began drafting, her ideas flowing freely, each sentence a line of defiance against the constraints she felt from her father's world. They spent hours refining their pitch, the cafe buzzing with life around them as they became immersed in their shared vision. With each stroke of her pen, Claire discovered facets of her own drive. She had neglected boldness, creativity, and a deep-seated conviction that her worth was not defined by familial approval. Jake's laughter reverberated alongside her aspirations. Every word exchanged solidified their partnership, but beneath the excitement lay the foundation of an impending confrontation. The message from her father hung in the back of her mind, a reminder that she could not simply evade the expectations of her past. "Tonight's the deadline to send our pitch," Jake remarked, glancing at the time. "Are you ready? I think this could really open doors for us." A sense of dread knotted in Claire's stomach as she considered the other door standing ajar, her father's insistence buried in his message. It was now or never. "Let us do it," she finally said, her voice quieter than intended, but resolute. "Send the pitch." Jake's smile lit up the room, and as he clicked send, Claire felt an adrenaline rush sweep through her. Yet, simultaneously, a deep-rooted fear taunted her. The equilibrium she had fought to establish teetered on the edge of her family's expectations and her emergent identity. Later that evening, as she sat alone contemplating her next steps, her phone buzzed again. A new response from her father, shorter this time, more insistent. "Meet me at the office tomorrow. We need to discuss your future." An ultimatum. It was time to confront her father and, in doing so, confront herself. In the shadow of that decision loomed another question. Could she find the courage to stand firm, to assert her choices, in a way that would not only shape her future but disrupt the narrative that had defined her for so long? With her heart pounding, Claire braced herself for the meeting that would not only test her resolve, but define her relationship with her family and ultimately, with herself. What awaited her in that office could either be a heart-wrenching confrontation or a bold statement of independence. Was she truly ready for what lay ahead? The tension hung heavy, pulsing with the undeniable urge for transformation as the night deepened, leaving her on the precipice of everything she had fought to embrace. Claire sat at her kitchen table, staring into the abyss of uncertainty that lay ahead. The late-night silence was oppressive, her thoughts a disarray of conflicting emotions. She replayed the digital conversation with her father in her mind, anticipating the conversation. What would she say? How would she frame her evolving identity against the backdrop of his expectations? Anxiety coiled tightly around her chest, creating a penumbral cocoon. The fork in her life's path drew nearer. She had chosen to pursue her dreams with Jake. Now it was time to articulate those choices to her father. As she leaned back, she replayed her pitch, echoing Jake's words on passion and authenticity. Each word felt like armor she could wear for the impending battle. "It's not just a business, Dad," she envisioned herself saying. "It's who I am becoming." Determined to prepare herself mentally, Claire grabbed her notepad and began jotting down thoughts. "What if I'm not enough?" She scribbled, then crossed it out. "What if I disappoint him?" She paused for a moment, grappling with that sentiment. But even more jarring was the realization that she had lived with that fear far too long. She had always been the dutiful daughter, the one who strived to win her father's approval. Now, asserting accountability for her own happiness felt both exhilarating and terrifying. She released a breath she hadn't known she was holding. Staring out the window, she noticed hints of dawn creeping over the skyline, a spectral harbinger of the day's forthcoming storm. "I have to own this," she whispered to herself, amplifying her resolve. With every tick of the clock, she made subtle decisions about the conversation. Would she reveal her vulnerabilities? Share the profound sense of relief she felt with Jake's partnership? Or would her father's reactions dictate her narrative once more? As the sun finally broke into the world, Claire prepared for her meeting with her father. The morning light represented the clarity she needed. Dressed, she embraced the rush. Her phone vibrated. A text from Jake. "Thinking of you. You've got this." With every word, his support fortified her spirit. She texted back, "Thanks, I will." At the office, the air felt charged. Each click of her heels against the polished floor echoed like a countdown. Time bent as she stepped into her father's corner office. The familiar scent of leather and old wood overwhelming her senses. The ornamental decor and conservative atmosphere housed her memories of familial duty. Her father sat behind his grand desk, the walls adorned with images of their family's legacy, each frame chipping away at the confidence she had built. "Claire," he said, his voice steady yet saturated with authority. "I'm glad you came." She met his gaze, battling the urge to falter. "Dad, we need to talk," she began, feeling a tremor in her words. He appeared ready to dismiss what she had to say, but she pressed on. "I've sent you a pitch. It's important to me the startup reflects who I am." She fought to maintain eye contact, her heart hammering in her chest. His brow furrowed slightly as he processed her words. "I received it. But Claire, you're making a mistake. This isn't the path for you. You have a future here in the family business." A wave of indignation swept through her. "What if I don't want that future, Dad? I need to try this for myself." The words ignited a tension that charged the air between them, thick and palpable. For a moment, a shocked silence hung in the room, the weight of her declaration colliding with his aspirations for her. Would he understand her desire for independence, or would he brand her as a disappointment? As the silence grew, Claire felt the stakes rising. The confrontation had transformed into a true reckoning, illuminating the contours of her identity against the hardened expectations surrounding her. What she had always feared had taken a form she could now confront. "I can't live my life for you anymore," she finally whispered, the tension thick with unvoiced fears and long-held dreams. Her father's face reflected confusion, anger, and something deeper, perhaps fear of losing the daughter he thought he knew. Could she break free from this cycle? Claire inhaled deeply, preparing for whatever might come next, willing to carve out her destiny regardless of the consequences. The moment hung delicately, her resolve hanging in the balance. "Dad, this is about more than the pitch," she pressed, anxiety morphing into determination as she awaited his response. "It's about my life." The confrontation unfurled before them like a dramatic tableau, fraught with unspoken emotions. What he would say next could shatter the fragile reality she had just begun to build or grow it into something more profound. The air between them thickened, pregnant with potential outcomes as a flurry of emotions flickered across her father's face. Claire's heart raced, her mind oscillating between trepidation and defiance. She had maneuvered herself into this position, and now she was armed with the stark reality that her life was at stake, not just her dreams. "I don't understand why you're doing this," her father finally said, his voice dripping with disbelief. It struck Claire as an accusation, almost a lamentation. "You know what's waiting for you if you choose to remain on the path I've laid out. We've built this together, our reputation, our legacy. Why throw it away?" Those words landed hard, a gavel of finality bang against the discourse they shared. For so long, Claire had internalized that legacy as tethering her to the familial machine, binding her dreams to those established by her ancestors. The weight of her father's disappointments felt suffocating in that moment. But equally insistent was a flickering spark of resolve, nagging in her own conscience. "Because it's not my legacy, Dad," Claire asserted, her voice rising slightly. Each word felt like a stepping stone guiding her to a deeper understanding of her own truth. "I appreciate everything this family has built, but it doesn't reflect who I am. This time I choose my own vision of success." "Success?" he spat, incredulous. "It's youth and naivete that could cost you everything. You are acting on impulsive whims." The air crackled with discontent. Claire took a moment, her breath steadying as his words cut through her. She had expected resistance, yet what she hadn't anticipated was that it would spark the fire within her to crush the fear of failure that so often pestered her consciousness. This wasn't just a business proposal. It was her assertion. Maybe you're right, she replied slowly, each syllable carving her resolve deeper. Yet what's the harm in pursuing my dreams, watching them fail if they must? At least I will know I tried. There's no value in living a life dictated by the suffocating fear of failure. An artist's heart can lead to ruin. He countered fiercely, the once calm authority in his voice now boiled over. You think you're ready? The world is not waiting to coddle your whims. Claire, you have responsibilities. Each word felt like a dagger, but Claire did not flinch. Instead, she felt the heat of determination surging through her veins, igniting her suppressed ambition. She visualized her plans with Jake again, reflecting not just a business, but their passion, their connection, their willingness to explore uncharted avenues. I can't keep living for other people, she insisted, the steel in her voice returning. I want to create something authentic. If it fails, I'll still learn from it. But to ignore my heart? That's not an option anymore. Her father's demeanor shifted momentarily, a fleeting glimpse of uncertainty passing over his features, quickly masked by a hardened glare. The tornado of feelings swirling within her prompted the next challenge she had to throw at his feet, something that could shatter the stoic image he held. If I abandon my dreams now, what's left of our relationship? Resentment? Claire pressed, fueled by a mixture of passion and desperation. I want your support not as a ruler, but as a partner who understands that I need to forge my own path. What you call struggling for independence, I call disloyalty, he snapped, words like daggers aimed at her determination. At that moment, Claire realized the chasm between them could either deepen or begin to bridge upon a path of mutual understanding. That recognition bore an unsettling revelation. Her father was also entangled in a web of expectations, fearing the loss of his control more than anything else. What doesn't seem disloyal, Dad? Claire challenged, a flicker of urgency infusing her tone, is wanting the same connection we once had, one not forged by control, but through respect. Will you let me show you that I can do this whatever it may bring? The silence that followed her question reverberated in the room, thudding against their shared history. It was filled with the weight of expectations, fears, and the faint glimmer of hope, a singular moment pregnant with the possibility for both healing and unveiling lifelong scars. Their gazes locked, neither of them willing to look away, the stakes clear and high. Claire sensed that this was the moment she had galvanized herself for. But in this double-edged dialogue, one question gnawed at her heart with unrelenting insistence. Would her father ever truly accept her for who she wanted to become, or would this be the fracture point of their relationship? As anticipation hung thick in the air, Claire braced herself for whatever truth her father would deliver next. Claire's heartbeats echoed ominously in the silence of her father's office, a realm that had always represented familial loyalty, yet now felt like a prison. She had challenged expectations and was prepared to pursue her own path, but uncertainty loomed. Would her father embrace her new identity, or would he remain anchored to his perspective? Time suspended as she studied him, hoping for a glimpse of understanding. Claire, he finally began, his voice a blend of disbelief and resignation. I can't promise you will succeed, and a life of creativity is riddled with risks. His words, laden with concern, offered a window to his soul, revealing layers of protectionism, primal instincts to shield the daughter he loved. I know, Dad, but it's my life to shape, she firmly replied, the steel of her voice underpinned by vulnerability. I've spent my years meeting expectations that weren't mine and living doubts that never belonged to me. It's time I lived for myself. As she spoke, something inside her shifted. There was no retreat from this moment. Every pulse of resolution felt like picking up a pen to rewrite the chapters of her life. The weight of conformity began to lift, revealing the lightness of newfound freedom. She yearned for understanding but prepared for the possibility of rejection. The world would not stop moving, and neither could she. A flicker of recognition crossed her father's eyes, a fleeting reflection of conflict as he weighed her worth against his legacy. You're strong, Claire. I've always known that, he acknowledged quietly. But realizing your ambitions may lead to disappointment. Or discovery, she countered. Her defiance swirled with hope. In understanding who I am, I might inspire others to pursue their truths as well. This decision is about more than just me. It's about shaping a future forged from authenticity. His expression softened slightly, the lines around his mouth shifting as the tension between them began to dissipate. The battle lines drawn did not simply define their relationship, they defined the bond they could build moving forward. I just want what's best for you. But sometimes it takes stepping into the fire to find that out. He conceded, glancing down at his desk littered with the remnants of his past choices, still grappling with the enormity of her transformation. Then help me ignite that fire, she urged, her voice breaking through the barriers that had separated them for too long. I've always admired your resilience. Let us build something together, an interplay of our legacies, not a cancellation of one another. The air thickened with palpable tension. There was a chance that her father's understanding could bridge the chasm between familial obligation and personal ambition. When you said you wanted to create a future, he started, his voice tinged with vulnerability. I feared it wasn't aligned with what I envisioned for you. But what if our visions overlap? Claire pressed, buoyed by the shift in momentum. What if you could guide me while allowing me to forge my path? A silence lingered, pregnant with potential as they stood at the edge of understanding, teetering between generations. I'll support your pursuit, he finally replied, his voice imbued with firmness yet softened by acceptance. But you must promise to communicate with me. No more stepping back. Deal, she nodded emphatically. An overwhelming sense of relief flooded her veins. They faced an unwritten future, but this new beginning would hinge on mutual respect. As she left her father's office, Claire's spirit soared. Each step echoed her triumph, a testament to conquering both personal fears and familial expectations. Weeks later, she and Jake stood side by side at a crowded conference, a sea of eager faces surrounding them. Their pitch had been accepted, an opportunity to share their vision for a startup bridging socio-economic divides through creative sustainable architecture. With a deep breath, Claire began presenting their joint endeavor, voice steady and unwavering. She articulated their inspiration drawn from resilience and authenticity, which earned her validation not just from the judges but from the crowd. Applause rang out, infused with excitement and recognition. In that moment, Claire realized that her journey had transitioned from fear to appreciation. The crowd's response was not just a nod to their venture. It was a proclamation of her transformation, a celebration of her identity that she had so fiercely asserted. As the presentation concluded and the applause washed over them, Claire felt a wave of fulfillment, the culmination of not just a pitch but a triumph over silenced dreams. Jake looked at her, pride illuminating his eyes. She had engaged the world not just as an architect of buildings but as an architect of her own life. From that moment forward, Claire knew she would navigate her own path, a journey marked by courageous choices and lasting commitments, reinforced by the understanding reached with her father. That was the true accomplishment. It was more than career success. It was the establishment of her identity. Now it's your turn. If you believe in the power of transformation, you need to subscribe immediately to our channel. Don't wait even one more second. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, and comment your thoughts about this powerful conclusion. Let us inspire even more dreamers together. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to witness this vital journey of overcoming. Help them discover their potential.